What if the most feared enemy in the galaxy wasn't an alien race, but the forgotten children of Earth? A silent force has returned from the shadows, not for peace, not for power, but for justice. Their message is clear. You started this. Now we're going to finish it. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to this channel and show a thumbs up by liking the video. Now, let's jump into the story. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Concord, where the most powerful empires of the galaxy met to make decisions of peace and war, an unexpected silence fell. Lights shimmered across high crystal walls, and voices echoed in dozens of languages, each trying to be louder than the last. It was business as usual. Endless debates, pompous speeches, and the usual arrogance that came with ruling the stars. Then, without warning, every screen in the chamber flickered, cut to black, and a strange voice filled the air. The voice wasn't loud, but it was clear, calm, steady. It repeated the same message, again and again. You started this. Now we are coming. Nothing else. No demands, no threats, no name. Just that chilling sentence, spoken in perfect galactic standard. For a moment, the entire chamber stood frozen. Then, laughter. One of the Concord's high ministers, a sneering reptilian being named Speaker Velnox, waved his hand dismissively and chuckled. Probably a lost transmission from some dead planet, he said. Others joined in, eager to show they weren't scared. The transmission ended as suddenly as it had begun, and the council resumed their debates like nothing had happened. But not everyone was laughing. In the corner of the chamber stood Marshal Oren, a retired war commander whose name still held weight in military circles. He had survived more battles than most could count, and in that moment, as the voice played in his mind, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Dread. It wasn't the words that scared him. It was the tone. There was no fear in that voice. No anger, just quiet certainty. The kind that meant the speaker didn't need to threaten. They knew what was coming. Oren didn't say anything, not yet. But he knew something was wrong. Later that night, Prime Seer Lintra, a diplomatic psychic assigned to monitor emotional patterns in galactic affairs, reached out to Oren. She looked pale, her silver eyes wide. I've heard that voice before, she whispered. In dreams, in old whispers, long ago before Earth was ever mentioned in history records. Oren didn't ask how. He just nodded. Lintra had always seen things others ignored. She told him the voice was human, not a species the Concord took seriously. In fact, many believed they were gone. Just a myth from the darker pages of history. The next day, scientists were ordered to trace the signal. The results came back confusing. The message had no clear origin point. It had jumped from dead satellites, bounced off broken stations, and even used abandoned mining colonies to hide its path. Even the Council's deepest, encrypted systems had been bypassed, as if someone had walked through locked doors without leaving footprints. But again, the Council brushed it off. A clever trick, they said. Maybe a rebel faction trying to cause panic. Oren knew better. This wasn't a trick. This was someone testing the waters. Over the next week, strange events began to unfold. A scout ship near the edge worlds vanished without a trace. Its last transmission was static and a glimpse of a shadow moving across the stars. A listening station in Sector 9 went dark. No distress call. No warning. One moment it was there. The next, it was silent. When a team was sent to investigate, they found nothing. Just empty halls and flickering screens. And yet the Council continued to laugh it off. Pirates, they said, black hole storms, sensor malfunctions. Anything but the truth. Oren finally stood up during a meeting. His voice echoed across the chamber, deep and calm. This is no malfunction, he said. We are being watched. Someone is testing our defenses, and they are doing it with more precision than any force I've ever seen. But his warning was drowned out by politics and pride. Speaker Velnox accused him of fear-mongering. Others rolled their eyes and whispered that the old marshal was chasing ghosts. Oren sat down, jaw tight. He knew what came next. Then, just 3 days later, the second signal came. It wasn't audio this time, it was a video feed, grainy but unmistakable. A conquered battlecruiser floated lifeless in space, torn open along its side. Engines silent. No life signs aboard. Its systems had been hacked, every screen displaying the same sentence. This is only the beginning. And underneath it, in red just one word, humanity. The chamber that once echoed with arguments and arrogance now stood in stunned silence. No one laughed, not even Velnox. Marshal Oren rose slowly, turned to face them all and said, "You didn't believe me. Now you have no choice." His voice carried the weight of truth, of grim certainty. The council finally understood they had underestimated something ancient, something angry, and something very, very human. But still, some refused to believe it. "Humans are a myth," one of the advisors said, "a story told by mad wanderers and drunk traders. But myths don't hack warships. Myths don't leave trails of silence and wreckage." The fear had begun to grow. Across the galaxy, systems were going quiet. People whispered in fear. Something was moving in the dark. And whatever it was, it hadn't come to talk. It had come to finish what had been started long ago. The silence began like a soft warning, easy to ignore, but impossible to forget. Across the edges of the galaxy, where stars burned faint and lonely, the stillness felt wrong. Patrol ships sent out routine scans and received nothing, not even the usual cosmic noise. Systems that once buzzed with trade, mining, or chatter had gone quiet, as if the void itself was holding its breath. In the distant Varnan sector, Captain Nirai Voss stood on the bridge of the Strider, her patrol ship drifting near the edge of known space. She had seen many strange things in her years of service: rogue planets, unstable wormholes, even a gas giant that sang in strange vibrations. But this silence was different. It wasn't peaceful. It felt like something waiting. The Strider was part of a small fleet of 3 ships, tasked with checking on a group of lost mining colonies. Their communications had gone dark a week ago. At order, first the command center blamed solar flares or old equipment, but when 2 more stations vanished without explanation, the fleet was sent to investigate. They arrived to find wreckage, not from explosions or battles, but destruction so precise it looked surgical. Equipment was sliced clean. Storage containers were missing. Power sources had been removed, not damaged. It was as if someone had come through, taken what they wanted, and vanished without leaving a trace. No signs of struggle, no bodies, just empty metal skeletons drifting in space. Lieutenant Jarrow Tane, a younger officer aboard the Strider, studied the footage taken from the last known transmission of the mining colony. At first it looked like static, but when enhanced, a shape became clear, massive, black and without visible engines. No lights, no markings, just a dark outline moving across the stars like a shadow that didn't belong. It didn't register on heat scans or radar. "That's not one of ours," Jarrow whispered, and Captain Nirai said nothing. She already knew. That night, they received a weak signal from Watcher Unit 9, a recon drone that had been circling the area days earlier. It had survived long enough to record one final message: "They are here." Then silence. Captain Nirai called for full alert. Weapons charged, shields up, but they saw nothing. The stars remained still, and their scanners were clear, until the lights dimmed. Power systems across all 3 ships began flickering, then shutting down. Not violently, quietly, smoothly, like someone flipping off switches one by one. Communications were scrambled. Engines wouldn't respond. Panic spread fast. Crews ran to emergency panels, tried to reset controls. But the systems weren't failing. They were being shut out, controlled, disabled from the outside. Then came the burst. A wave of electromagnetic energy rolled through the fleet. All power died instantly. Lights, shields, weapons, life support, all gone. The ships floated helplessly, blind and deaf in the dark. The crew's final communications were filled with static and screams. Something was out there, and it had just torn through a fully armed patrol fleet without firing a single shot. Back. At Concord Command, the emergency signals came in all at once, then stopped. The officers in charge stared at the blank screens, confused and alarmed. They ordered a follow-up response. Another fleet would be dispatched in hours. But by the time it arrived, they found nothing but silence. The Strider, the other ships, the mining colony, all gone. No wreckage, no debris, just faint energy traces, and one chilling message burned into the metal hull of an abandoned storage unit, etched by some kind of high-energy beam. It read, "You were warned." At first, the Council tried to hide what happened. The Concorde had always relied on its image of invincibility. No enemy had ever struck them without punishment. But this wasn't a battle, it was a ghost story. Traders and smugglers began whispering about a black ship that could appear and disappear without a sound. A ship that never used weapons, but left only silence behind. Stories spread fast, faster than the Council could stop them. And across the galaxy, fear began to grow. Marshal Oren, still watching from the shadows of Concord leadership, gathered what little data he could. Every incident followed a pattern. No survivors, no warnings, no demands. Just silence, followed by a message. And then, nothing. Oren knew what this meant. It wasn't just a show of strength. It was a warning. The humans, if that's who they were not playing by anyone else's rules. They weren't looking to talk. They weren't seeking power or territory. They were sending a message. Back near the edges of explored space, an old smuggler named Karis Jen was running a quiet route through abandoned stations when her ship picked up something strange, a signal not in any known language, followed by a vision on her front display. It wasn't a ship. It was a silhouette far in the distance, darker than space itself. It didn't move, didn't blink, just hovered, watching. She turned her ship around and fled. Later, she told anyone who would listen, that wasn't a machine, that was a predator. Despite everything, the Council refused to act. Speaker Velnox insisted it was a trick by rebels or pirate factions trying to stir panic. He claimed the silence was a result of natural events. But the people of the galaxy weren't so sure anymore. Too many outposts had vanished. Too many ships had disappeared without leaving a trace. The galaxy wasn't just quiet. It was scared. And while the Council clung to their pride, something vast was moving just beyond their reach. The silence had become a storm waiting to break. The whispers of fear had turned into waves of panic. Across the galaxy, systems once ruled by the Concorde were breaking down. Stations locked their doors. Colonies stopped responding to central commands, and merchant ships rerouted their paths far away from the outer sectors. No one wanted to be next. The silence had become too loud. Something was out there, cold, intelligent, and watching. And despite the Concorde's efforts to control the story, the truth was slipping through like cracks in glass. The humans were back, not as myths, not as rumors, but as a quiet, deadly force no one had seen coming. Commander Solon Merrick stood in the situation room of a military outpost deep in the carry-on belt. A man of discipline and logic, he had studied battles all his life, led missions across dangerous sectors, and never once believed in legends until now. He stared at a map filled with glowing red markers, lost fleets, missing stations, ghost signals. The pattern was clear. These weren't random attacks. Someone was choosing targets carefully, disabling Concord defenses one by one without causing full destruction. Solon frowned. "They're not trying to conquer," he said to his officers. "They're dismantling us, bit by bit." At the same time, far away on the smuggler's moon of Trevos, Naira Halden, a well-known trader of rare minerals and black market parts, was searching for a lost cache near the Varnan expanse. She'd picked up a strange signal a few days before. Faint, but unusual. It led her to an abandoned station floating in the dark. No power, no signs of life. But inside, Beneath rusted panels and old debris, she found something impossible. A human outpost. Sleek. Advanced. Still running silently. It didn't make sense. The tech was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Cold, black walls. Lights that responded to her movement. Screens displaying data in an unknown code. And one message, repeating quietly in the background. Do not fear. You are not the target. She left in a hurry, but they let her go. Back in the Concord's central archives, Elder Aneth Varen sat alone in a dusty wing of the historical chambers, reading through forgotten files. He had spent his life studying the lost species of the galaxy, and for decades had argued that humans were not a myth. Most laughed at him, called him foolish. But now, as footage from the outer sectors reached him, he recognized the patterns. The black ships, the quiet messages, the refusal to kill unless necessary. This is not revenge, he whispered to himself. This is judgment. News spread fast. A full Concord fleet, led by Admiral Kes Renor, had gone to confront a suspected human presence near the Othra system. 20 warships, armed with the latest technology. They never returned. All that came back was a recording from their flagship. Screens filled with static, then a voice. Calm. Human. This is only the beginning. No threats. No demands. Just a quiet promise. The Concord could no longer hide the truth. Panic swept through major cities. People started to leave the outer colonies. Traffic choked hyperspace lanes as families fled toward core planets. Some whispered that the humans would destroy everything. Others believed they were here to punish only those who had harmed them. And many simply didn't know what to believe anymore. Solon Merrick was one of the few commanders who refused to retreat. He began forming defense plans, not for attack, but survival. He sent scouts into the void, hoping to learn more. Most never returned. Those who did spoke of massive ships, larger than anything the Concord had built, moving without sound, vanishing and reappearing at will. Some even claimed to have heard music, soft and haunting, echoing through the dark as the ships passed. Solon didn't laugh at these stories. Not anymore. Naira Halden, shaken but alive, returned to Trevis with a warning. They don't kill, unless they want you to talk, she told a group of frightened traders. I saw one of their stations. They've been watching us for years, listening, learning. They know who we are, what we did. When asked why she was spared, she hesitated. I think they wanted me to tell you. Elder Aneth Varen published his findings in secret. He traced the human disappearance back to a time when Earth was invaded by Concord forces, believing the planet was too primitive to resist. The record showed the invaders left thinking Earth was destroyed. But there were gaps, discrepancies, entire files deleted. He believed humans survived in the deep unknown, evolving their minds and technology in silence, waiting for this moment. Then something even more terrifying happened. A Concord warship appeared above the city of Relin Prime, not destroyed, just floating. Its engines were cut, systems disabled, weapons offline. No crew aboard, and across its outer hull written in molten metal were the words, "Let this be your reminder we are not myths." The galaxy was changing. Fear spread not from loud explosions or fiery attacks, but from the quiet certainty that something more powerful, more patient, had returned. These weren't angry conquerors. They were survivors, coming back with purpose, with discipline, with memory. The Concord, for all its pride, was now faced with a truth it could no longer ignore. Earth's children had returned, and they weren't here for peace. They were here for justice. Admiral Dren Voss stood before the High Command with a fire in his eyes that hadn't dimmed since his first battle decades ago. Around him sat the last decision-makers of the Galactic Concord, leaders who had once ruled without fear, now shrinking, under the weight of uncertainty. The war rooms were quieter these days. The holograms showing fleet positions flickered with too many blanks, too many missing ships. Dren's voice was sharp and certain as he declared, This is our last chance. We either confront them now, or we accept that we've already lost. The Council, desperate to restore control, approved a final mission. Dren would lead a response fleet, 30 ships strong, toward the last known coordinates of the Black vessels near the Hyrex Drift. It was not just a mission, it was meant to be a statement. The Concord would not bow to ghosts. They would face this threat, crush it, and remind the galaxy who still held power. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, under orders to engage, capture, or eliminate any human presence they found. When they arrived, space was quiet. Too quiet. The stars shimmered without sound, and the darkness stretched endlessly. Then the human ships appeared, not one or two, but 10, enormous and still, each one twice the size of Dren's largest cruiser. They didn't move. They didn't speak. They simply waited, as if daring the Concord to strike first. Dren ordered a combat formation, trying to keep his voice steady. Prepare to fire. But before the command could be given, the human fleet moved. Without warning, without sound, they darted through space like shadows made real. They didn't attack directly. Instead, they disabled engines, sliced through weapon systems, and shut down shields in seconds. One by one, the Concord's most advanced ships were left floating, powerless, unable to fight, unable to flee, and still, the humans didn't destroy them. Then came the message. It echoed through every ship, every station in the region. We could have ended you. We chose not to. This is your last warning. And with that, the human fleet disappeared, as quickly as it had come. No trace, no signal, just silence and failure. The greatest fleet the Concord had ever sent had been humiliated without a single human casualty. The news could not be hidden. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. People had seen the Concord's ships return, crippled, dragged home by emergency towcraft. Admiral Dren, once the symbol of Concord strength, sat silently in the recovery chamber, his eyes filled with the weight of defeat. For the first time in his life, he had no plan, no strategy. He had seen power he could not match, and he knew what it meant. On a quiet moon near the edge of the Ralvan system, a boy named Tev Ren was one of the few to survive a human ambush. He had been traveling with his uncle, a cargo pilot, when their freighter was pulled out of hyperspace. The black ship had appeared from nowhere. Tev expected death, but instead the humans had taken out their engines, scanned the ship, and let them go. Before they left, one of them even gave Tev a ration pack and placed a hand gently on his shoulder. Tev told this story again and again, and it spread like wildfire. Not everyone in the galaxy saw the humans as monsters anymore. Some saw them as judges, others as a force of balance. And a few like Tev believed they were not here to destroy everything, only to stop the powerful from hurting the weak again. This shift in thinking began to divide the Concord itself. Some leaders still demanded war. Others began calling for surrender, or at least negotiation. Among them was Lyra Kine, a brilliant communication scientist who had been working to decode the deeper layers of the human signals. What she found shocked her. Hidden beneath the messages were records, data logs, historical files, even images. Scenes from Earth's fall centuries ago. Battles, civilians, children, cities destroyed not by war, but by Concord attacks. It was proof. The Concord had tried to wipe out Earth, and somehow Earth had survived. Lyra presented this to the Council. "This isn't revenge," she said. "This is justice. They warned us. We didn't listen." Her words stirred silence. Even Speaker Velnox, who had once mocked every sign of danger, had no response. The humans had every reason to hate them. Yet they hadn't destroyed the Concord fleets. They had held back. Chosen to send a message instead. Then came the final transmission. It played across every known channel, in every language. It was not a threat. It was a choice. The voice said, "Lay down your pride. Accept what you've done. We will leave. You alone. Continue to deny it and we will end your age." That was all. The Concord met one last time. The vote was close. But in the end, they chose survival. Messages of surrender and apology were sent into the stars. The humans did not respond. They didn't need to. The silence was enough. From that day on, no human ship was seen again. But the memory remained. Earth's children had returned. Not as conquerors, but as a mirror. A reminder that even the strongest can fall. That justice, even in the void, cannot be outrun.